Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining me today. This month's training is all about our ID Designer application. Now, we normally recommend agencies use our standard designs that come with the software. However, we do understand that not everyone can use those designs and need different ID needs. And so on the call today, I've got Josh Brown, our on-site technical support specialist. Some of you have probably worked with Josh with getting software installed, getting your printing issues resolved, or possibly even assistance with your custom designs. As the most seasoned user of our ID Designer application, he's going to be walking you through the basic steps as well as some tips and tricks for creating badge designs. During the training, if you have any questions at all, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or you can send a question through the chat function. So before we get into the walkthrough, I just first want to explain what the ID Designer software is for those that may be new to this application or those that may have just purchased the application recently and just want a high-level overview. So the ID Designer software is used to create and design customized Salamander badges, which can then be printed from any of our Salamander solutions, such as Salamander Live, Rapid Tag, Evac, or Command. So whether it's the standard 2x3 hard card, a wristband, a 3-up card, or the 2x1 asset labels, basically the badge designs can be created from scratch using the badge wizard, or you can take a existing design and make it your own. So you can use that existing design as your foundation. As you can see here, this is an existing design, and then you can edit and change the location or add different fields in there to make it fit for your needs. One of the things you notice when you open ID Designer is the startup screen. It's going to appear with 3 different options to select from. So you're going to see design a new badge, open an existing badge, or exit the designer. So due to time for this training, we're just going to really focus on the editing of an existing badge design. So we're not going to go over the design of a new badge using the badge wizard. Okay. We do have documentation on that if you're interested in creating one from scratch. We've got an ID Designer user guide that you can go back and review if you'd like to. So before we go into the application, I think it's foremost important that we cover some definitions. You'll hear Josh speak to some of these definitions. You'll see some of this within the design tree. So we want to make sure that you at least have a base foundation or knowledge about the different areas that you're going to see within the ID Designer application. So a lot of it involves just understanding its workspace as well as the design areas. A design, as you guys know, can be as simple or as complex by having numerous design areas, meaning a front, a back, and etc. So each design area is going to have its usefulness and its limitations depending on what you're looking at doing. So on this page, on the screen, you're going to see is the badge tree window. So this is going to be present in every design, and if the window is closed, the entire design is going to be closed as well. So the badge tree is going to be useful for seeing what design areas and design objects are used in the design. So I just want you guys to notate that the badge tree, we're not really sure why, but some individuals actually see the badge tree and some do not. You can work off the design off of the badge tree if you like, but a lot of the areas are going to be opened up in different windows in which you would still get access to. So I just want to let you guys know that you may not see the design tree depending on your application. The next area I want to talk about is the page layout area. So this is the primary design area and is where the number of records per page are set. So all designs contain at least one page layout area. When you're creating a new design, the page layout area is going to be automatically created for page 1. Now, if a design has a single page area, only one side of the page will print. If you do have a second page layout area, and that's present within the design, that's usually meant for like a duplex or dual-sided printer where you have a front and a back. You'll notice that our card designs have a front and back for a design. So you have your logo and then your picture On the front, your name and then your organization. On the back of it has your qualifications code, and if you choose to do so, have your medical barcode on there as well on the back of the design. The badge area, this is used to group detail areas and design objects into a single design area. So the badge area can have a record number assigned to it and any design objects or detail areas placed within the badge area. And so that badge area will also be assigned this record number. So this right here, badge area, you see there's on this design there's a back, there's a front, and there's an over back and an over front. The detail area, this is going to be the primary area that you're going to be placing and editing design objects. So the design objects is basically like a barcode or a name field or a placeholder for a picture. So any objects placed in the detail area is going to be associated with the record number of the detailed area as well. And the last but not least is the work area. So the primary work area is the same for all design areas except for the badge tree. So when a design area or a design object is selected and highlighted, as you can see here, you'll see that this one is highlighted right here. You'll see the little dots around that. The information becomes an area in which you can edit. So you can edit the features that are displayed on the left and top of the windows along the rulers. So when you click on this, it activates these different options right here. So if you saw earlier, like on this screen right here, they're all grayed out. So in the work area in this case, it's going to activate these different icons and allows you to do different things to this particular design area or design object. Okay. All right, so I am going to send this off to Josh so that Josh can go over the actual walkthrough of the actual ID Designer application. So let me just give me a second here to switch my presenter mode over to Josh. All right, Josh, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. This is Josh, and I am just getting my screen shared. And I did adjust the resolution a little bit, so I'm hoping everybody can see this better. Okay. So, as Leah had said, this is the main screen that pops up. Normally, we do suggest designing from an existing badge. Just makes it easier on everybody. You already have a basic layout set up, both sides created, and then you can move everything where you'd want it to be or remove it if you want. For opening an existing badge, just select that option and click OK. And I've just got a couple in here for shows, actually. So you can see those in here. The data files represent the different types of areas you can print in Salamander Live. And if you just want to narrow down to specific badge types, you can do that with those by selecting a different data file. All data files will show everything. The incident A tag data file is for assignments. The E tag is for equipment. P tag is for patients. R tag for responders, and T tag for companies or collections. I am going to close out of this and also show the different badge wizards for creating one from scratch. A new badge wizard is probably the most useful because it does let you pick everything individually. Again, these are the data files, and one of them does need to be selected so you can match up everything to where it needs to be. We'll just select that, click Next. You can also pick a printer, and then it'll auto-size your overall work area to the size the printer can print to. So if you have a card printer, you can select that, and it'll automatically size it to the card size that's selected for the printer. You can also choose portrait or landscape. We mainly do everything in portrait, but some people do like landscape better. You can choose single or multiple records. For a standard card design, you're typically going to do single record for more like an 8x10 sheet of paper. Those will usually get into multiple records more often for doing something like a battle book or even using paper stock for quick badging of some sort. And once you click finish, you just get a very plain basic design. The other is just going through an actual new badge, and this one's even more basic, but it does have a feature that's really useful. You can select templates, and those would be created by somebody else that already has a design you'd want to use. They'd save it off as a template, or if you also have additional fields that need to come with it, it can be saved as an export design and then brought in using a new badge and choosing the template. And then it'll come in fully formed just the way the other person had created it. And it just allows people to share information if they can't pass the entire folder around for one reason or another. So for the editing of badge designs, you do need to select your main design area when you want to do the initial edit. And you can right-click, Edit Object, and that will bring up the detailed design area, which allows you to manipulate all the different fields. In the case of this one, we do have several fields being pulled from the database, and actually very few that are constant or set data types. One thing you should do if it's the first time you're using ID Designer is set some test data. This allows you to bring in images and also see some of this information to let you match up the fields the way you'd want them. To do that, you go up to View and Edit Test Data. And what's in there doesn't matter. To be honest, I usually go down the alphabet just so I have something in there. But if you need something specific because you have size limits or you have a certain amount of characters you need to fit in, you can put that amount in there so you can see where things will lay out. Once you do have some in there, you just click Save to File, and then it'll populate into any fields that you may have visible at the time. Four main items that will be used up here where the A and the person image is all of our database fields that can be brought in. This covers pretty much everything that Salamander Live offers that can be filled in by the user, and also a lot of things that are just system filled. So things like the account name and account type are system items that a standard user can't change. You can also bring in the computer name of the person or the computer name of the computer that is printing the tag or the user. Other things like blood type, blood pressure, allergies, various types of expiration, that also goes for birth, home address items, all that good stuff. And some of those fields are dependent on what kind of design you're creating. So for equipment, you obviously wouldn't have something like date of birth or date of hire, but you would have equipment-specific fields. To bring one of those in, you just select it, or multiple ones, and click text or image. So these are both text fields, so the only option would be text. But if we go down to your photo, which would be your personnel image, you also get the option for an image, and that'll bring in the image that is in Salamander Live for the individual you're printing. If you choose text, it'll actually just give a string of characters related to the database location, which isn't really helpful. Once that item is brought in, you can right-click on it and go to Properties and All Properties to bring up all the different items to change where it's located, how things are laid out. From here, you can reposition based on a left and top coordinate. And all this is typically done in inches, but it can be changed to metric if you'd want. You can also set the width and height. If anything needs to be rotated, you can do it by 90-degree increments or put your own in. Images, in particular, are usually set fit to size. That way the image will shrink or expand depending on the size of the field. For text, centering is default none, but you can also change it to width, height, or both. Tiling is mainly for images as well, and that'll just repeat the image until it fills the space, assuming the image is small enough to repeat within the area you've set. Next would be your font, and for images, it's just transparency, whether the background of the image is see-through, so to speak, and you can see what's behind it, or if it's going to blank out the area behind it. Nothing really for images with the appearance, same with description. Overwrite data is something that's available for text as well, and when you put something in there, it'll just show that information in the field while you're creating your template. When you go to print, that information basically disappears and is replaced with whatever is in the record that you're trying to print. Verification, and I'll get into this a little bit more a little bit later. This allows you to make the image visible or invisible depending on information in another field. So if you have an image that you want to show for a qualification, like for a firefighter, you want to have, if they have a firefighter qualification of any sort, you can configure it so it'll show, say, a little firefighter hat, or a police officer who has qualifications, they can show a little police officer hat, or so on and so forth, or color bar changes depending on the type of organization. Source isn't really used. There are some special cases where an individual might want to use it if they want to set a maximum length for a field and just cut off any additional characters for one reason or another, or if they want to start displaying the characters after a certain number have passed, and that would be the starting offset. So if you set the max length at 15, it's only going to show 15 characters even if there's 30 in the field. The offset, if you set it to 5, it's going to drop off those first 5 characters and then continue on from there. Also with images, you can use the image brightness to create a ghosting effect. I'll actually choose this image I have in the background. that through here. And if we choose the ghosting, we can change that image's contrast and brightness to either make it sharper or change the coloring a little bit to basically make it a ghost or turn it off from a ghost. So I made all the contrast and brightness more vibrant, so it'll go from here as a sample to something much more dominant in the image. I do know a lot of departments have like a state seal or department logo that they want to show up behind everything, and the ghosting allows you to do that without having the image block out department names or individual names. For text, we'll actually go into the constants, and this is just any type of static text or image that's going to appear on every badge with that field independent of what might be in Salamander Live. So for headers like allergies, if you want those put on, we do have that pre-done. Text for something like a company barcode. We also have other ID, just a bunch of different things preloaded. If you want to edit anything, like in the case of this other ID, you can click on Edit, and it gives you the description, which is the title, and then the actual text that appears. So if you wanted to change this to all capitals, you can just retype it. And when you click Save, it'll actually change it automatically in the design. If you just want to bring a new one, you can just click on New and just give it a title. And then also add the text. And when you click Save, it'll automatically go back to the entries, automatically highlight the one you just created, and you can click Text, and it will show up. For the properties on the text items, again, you can highlight it, go to right-click, Properties, All Properties, and pretty much the same thing on the positioning. You can rotate, change location, width, height, and then centering, none, width, height, they're both. The font, transparent is default. And if you uncheck that, it'll, instead of showing this yellow like here through, it'll just create a white bar all the way across. Multi-line, assuming your space has enough space, it'll actually start making the text into multi-line vertically instead of shrinking everything down to fit in the space horizontally. Strike through and underline. Just like with Word, it'll either put a line through the words that are printed or underline everything. For the different font types, they're mainly just Windows defaults. You've got Arial, there's New Time Roman, Trebuchet, and pretty much every other one that you'd see in Word. The different styles, same thing, and the font sizes. One thing about the size, I kind of alluded to this before, but if your text is too long for the field size, it will shrink the font until it fits. So if you have a very short field, say a 1/4 inch, and you're trying to put 20 characters in there with a font size of 12, it's going to shrink it until everything fits, which, given a 1/4 inch field length, is probably going to be a size 4 font. So when you're doing any type of creation, you do need to be aware of the maximum number of characters and what size font would best fit in that, or how small it may get if you go too far over. For barcode, when you check that, it brings up a different menu set, and here you can change any field into a barcode of any type. For our personnel barcodes, we do use a QR code. Some of the older systems, some people may be familiar with, had a PDF 417 barcode. You can also do code 128, which is a linear, similar to a UPC barcode. I've seen those used for security system scans, or if lunch checkouts, back of most people's driver's licenses have them, and it's just a single set of text that can be scanned for reference through a database. And any field either from Salamander Live, or if you just want a constant text for everybody, can be turned into a barcode. For appearance, when you click on colors, it does allow you to choose your RGB values for both the text or foreground and for your background. If you know a specific value, you can hand type it in, or you can just pick from the color grid for something that you'd like. Description, just like with the image, you can do overwrite data for any database fields. For constants, that's not offered. Verification, the same thing, and source. We also have concatenated information or fields, and this is a way to create a single field from multiples. So in some of the ones that we have preloaded, city, state, this pulls in the organization city from the Salamander Live database, adds a comma and space from our constant fields that we already have created, and then also pulls in the organization state. This can really be used for anything. Return addresses are a big one, hence the state or city and state. Also, you can do first name, last name, last name, first middle initial, so on. Any field that can be pulled in from Salamander Live as a standalone can be added as a concatenated one. And this really helps to create a very clean set of information. One I've seen and have seen people have trouble with is something like the hire date. They'll create a field for hire, and then they'll have a separate field for the actual date. And sometimes the spacing on those can get a little off. So a way to fix that is to create a concatenated field with the hire text, a space, and then the actual hire date, and then you have a single field that you can move around and center. You can also create objects, and that's what these bars right here are for. And when you click on that image, you can create squares, circles, ellipses, lines, and different slashes. You can also set them as an outline, mainly for the circle and ellipse. And when you do that, you can also dictate the width. The higher the number, the higher the value, or the thicker the lines are. And you can also change the color before creating it. Besides those main four, for getting different items in here, there's also some shortcut ones that you can use instead of going into properties for everything. For objects and pretty much everything, you do have the ability to change the color. For text items, you can also change the font. Your barcode, you can change your centering, either both horizontal, vertical, or if you have one of those applied, you can also click this one to remove the resizing. For images, similar, you can do tile image, or you can remove everything and then you can add it as centering and fit the size. For the verification, to go a little bit more in depth there, when you bring this up, these are all for ranks. So the title in the personnel record, if it's similar to player, the asterisk being a wild card, it will display this yellow bar. If it doesn't match any of these conditions, that yellow bar just doesn't appear. This can be applied to images, fields like, say, organization name, just color blocks like this one is, or other text. And again, you can pick any field from Salamander Live you want to compare it to. It doesn't even have to print on the badge itself. It just needs to be part of the person's record. And as long as it matches the conditions that are set, you're able to show or not show that field. Now going back a little bit, and this is more pertinent when you're doing a design from scratch. From your main front page or your page one, you can do a new and design area. This allows you to create a new design area to contain all the fields you want to do and make it cleaner and easier to access. And this just pulls up a blank sheet, which you can then add all the fields you'd want. You can also resize along this left-hand bar. And once it's created, you go back to your page one or two, and you can click the D down here, and it will allow you to pick it and place it on the design. For those who are interested in landscape badges for certain personnel, there is a trick to where you can have your printer still set at portrait, but have a landscape design print out. To do that, you'd want to rotate your area by 90 or 270. And then this actually inverts your width and height. So you need to change this to make it into your new size. And then when you go and do an edit, your new design is in landscape here, but it's printing out in portrait here. And that just makes life easier for all the people who have mixed badge types. Does anybody have any specific questions?
Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to send a message through the chat function, or you can unmute yourself and ask Josh. This is the time to do so. Is there anything that that anybody would like to see that was not shown on here? Josh did a great job in showing all the different areas and all the different types of objects and designs that you can add in here. But is there anything specific you guys are working on that you just need some maybe some clarification on, or just more information on? Okay. So no questions. So Josh, you can continue.
Really, for the basics, that's it. I guess the only two other things, and this is a little hard to show only because I don't have the design set up right, but you can change the number of records in a design. So if you're going to have a larger design, say the 3-up style tags for the hard card printer, or doing a battle book on plain paper, you can change the number of records per page to match what you'd want. And then each design area would get a different record number, 1 through however many records you're trying to get onto the page. The nice thing about this is you can also use the same design area for your layout. So you could basically add this design area multiple times to the same page. And then assign a different record number for each one. So in this one, it's record 2, and this one is record 1. Also, you can change where your fields sit in relation to others. If you highlight them up top here, the yellow box with the 2 gray behind it will bring that field all the way to the front, or you can push it all the way to the back behind everything else. Outside of that, If nobody else has any questions or wants to see something a little bit more in-depth, that is really the basics, and I am more than willing to help anybody if you have any questions right now.
All right. Doesn't look like anybody has any questions on here. So thank you, Josh, so much for taking the time to do this demonstration on ID Designer. Josh is actually currently designing a few of them for multiple organizations at the moment. But he is our resident expert, so please feel free to reach out if you have ID Designer and are looking at putting your design together. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out at support@salamanderlive.com. And we'd be glad to assist. Other than that, that does end our call today. We are going to be training this again next week, Wednesday, so feel free if you want to come back and join us again to see this training one more time. Please join us next week, Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central or 10 a.m. Eastern. Again, I want to thank you guys all so much for joining on today's call. Please have a wonderful day. And Josh, thank you again.
And thank you everybody for showing up.